I remember when I was at home playing video games, out of nowhere, my mom ends up coming into my room saying, Bubba, there's someone at the door for you. And I thought it was just some random person wanting to hang out until out of nowhere, when I got upstairs, I realized at my front door was a girl that I did the Devil's Tango with almost 9 months ago, and she was holding a baby. At this moment, I thought that this girl brought home my baby. What is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another insane but super embarrassing story. Now, this story all takes place back in my grade 12 year of high school. Now, my grade 12 year, I want to say it was the year I was graduating, and honestly, I really did not know what I was going to do with my life. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, a lot of my life, I always thought, you know, I was going to be some kind of lawyer or maybe a judge of some sorts. I don't know, something in the legal system. But one thing leads to another, and I guess thanks to you guys' support, I am able to become a content creator and tell crazy stories like this. But going on with the story, I remember my grade 12 year, near graduation, I remember 2 months before actually grad even happened, I was going to a lot of different parties that people were hosting at school. And well, from one party to another, I ended up meeting up with a girl that was, well, more on the rebellious side of things, because she was always, and I mean always, getting into some trouble. And I remember one time when I was at a party in my grade 12 year, she actually ended up coming up to me, and me and her, we started talking. We actually got kind of close and personal, and you know, me and her, we started talking about, you know, after high school, what the plans were. And she was kind of in the same position as me, where she did not know what to do. And I remember I ended up looking at her saying, honestly, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Like, some things just work out. And that's when she smiled and looked at me, and well, one thing led to another. We ended up making out at the party. Obviously, from then, I guess you guys kind of understand what would happen. Me and her, we ended up going back to her place, and we did the Devil's Tango. It was definitely really insane, and honestly, it was a really good experience. But let's just say that was just only the beginning of me seeing this girl, because I remember the next week after, she kept like basically getting really attached to me. And well, even throughout school, on our final weeks of high school even, she kept getting really close to me. I don't know why, but I guess she got really attracted to me after me and her did the Devil's Tango. But I still kept my distance. Anyways, I remember as the weeks went on, she kept basically texting me and always tried to make plans with me. And even got to the point where she said, Bubba, I really want you to come over. Like, I'm really in the mood for you. Even though, I'm not gonna lie, I felt like it was best if me and her kept it like a one-time thing and never really see each other again. Which, I mean, wasn't a bad idea. And me, I ended up ghosting her actually throughout the last weeks of high school until a couple days before grad. Because I remember a couple days before grad, apparently no one in the school was able to find out where she was. Apparently she went missing, and well, when people really started doing the search, the principal actually ended up walking up to this girl that she was best friends with, and I was around the area just listening in, eavesdropping. And then that's when the principal said, you gotta understand, your friend has been expelled for reasons I don't want to explain to you, but she will not be graduating from this high school. And he walked away. At that moment, it was kind of mind-blowing that she wasn't able to graduate. If anything, I felt kind of bad, but at the same time, once again, a rebel. She would always do, you know, really rebellious things, and to be honest, she was kind of the type of girl to be around the school, if you know what I mean. Like, there was many guys in my high school that did the Devil's Tango with her, so she was never really a loyal one, if that makes any sense. But this is where the story gets insane, because I remember 9 months later, literally the year after I graduate, it was the beginning of the new year, and I remember I was just kind of like excited, but at the same time kind of worried, because at this time I was working in a restaurant, and on top of that, the only thing I was still good at was playing video games and hanging out with friends. And I remember one day when I was literally at home, sitting down playing video games, I ended up getting a text message. Now, I usually get texts on my phone from random people from high school, but this number I ended up getting a message from wasn't from a number that I had saved on my phone. And when I didn't answer it, once again, I got another phone call and another phone call from the same number. I ended up picking it up and I said, hello, like, who's there? Bubba, it's me. Yeah, you're gonna have to say more than just it's me. Who is this? Bubba, do you not remember me from like high school? No, I don't have your number saved. Who is this? And when she finally said her name, I was in shock. I was like, oh my goodness, wait, did you graduate from my high school? No, I got kicked out because I ended up, you know, doing something illegal, but that's not the point. What are you doing right now? Just at home playing video games. Why? Bubba, I really need to see you. We need to talk about something. What do you want to talk about? Well, like, I was doing the math and like, I think there's someone you need to meet. At that moment, I was really confused on what she meant by that. Cause like, why would you need to do math for me to meet someone? And that's when I just decided to basically tell her, okay, to be honest with you, like what we had was in the past. I think we should just move on. And right as she was about to say something, I ended up hanging up the phone and basically blocked her number. I know it sounds really mean, but you gotta understand, my high school years is nothing to flex about, even though I tell the stories on here all the time. It was just a bunch of mistakes that still kind of, I guess, get in my brain once in a while. That's probably one of the reasons why I tell these stories on the channel, to cope with it. But going going on with the story, I remember a couple days went by and I really got like weird feelings from that phone call. And it even got to the point where I was hanging out with one of my homies and I told him about like, you know, how I got that phone call from her. My friend ended up looking at me saying, oh yeah, I remember that girl. She was the girl that you met at that party, right? Yeah, like she went to our high school, dude. Like, I don't know, it's really weird how she called me randomly. She said she wanted me to meet someone. Huh, that's really weird, man. Honestly, the more I think about it, wasn't she like kind of a player like you? Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I guess that's one of the reasons why we connected so well. To be honest, I don't remember. It was so long ago. At that moment, he just told me to not worry about it and just kind of move on from it. It was in the past anyway, and he was right. So I remember literally that same day, right as I got home, I ended up hopping on my Xbox playing Call of Duty with some of the boys. And as I was in a party chat with the boys on Xbox, out of nowhere, I hear a knock on the door. I remember I didn't really care about it at the time because, well, my mom usually answers the door or someone else in my family, usually a parent, would answer the door. So I just kind of like ignored it and let them like deal with it until I remember a couple seconds later, my mom comes downstairs saying, Bubba, there's someone at the door for you. What? Who's at the door? Bubba, I think you need to come upstairs and see this. At that moment, I ended up going upstairs with my mom, and right as I look at my doorstep, I ended up realizing it was the girl from like 9 months ago, back in high school. I ended up kind of freaking out, and I looked at her. I'm like, what are you doing here? Bubba, there's someone I want you to meet. And at that moment, she ends up pulling a baby out of the stroller that she had. And she told me, Bubba, I want you to meet our son, Daniel. At that moment, I look at the baby and I look at her and I'm like, okay, wait, why am I meeting this kid? Well, he's your son. At that moment, I was freaking out. I'm like, wait, what? My son? How did you, what? And then that's when my mom ended up looking at me absolutely in shock and in full-on anger. And at that moment, I didn't really know what to do. Until my mom, she looks at me and said like, invite her in, Bubba. We have to talk about this. So I remember I invited her in. We sat down on my living room couch and we started talking about it. She was telling me how like 9 months ago was when me and her did the Devil's Tango. And apparently she got pregnant. And well, I don't know, like somehow in some way that was my kid. I remember I ended up looking at the kid and I ended up looking at her. And in my mind, like I was panicking, but I had a gut feeling that I wasn't the actual father of this child. So I remember I looked at her and said, 9 months ago, was I the only guy you did the Devil's Tango with? Bubba, how could you ask such a question? Do you think I'm like some kind of like joke? Like you just think I go around with any guy I want? At that moment, I ended up looking at my mom and I ended up looking back at the kid. And I'm just like freaking out because like if it's true that she didn't do anyone else 9 months ago, chances of me being the father were really, really high. So I looked at her once again and I said, okay, wait, so are you sure that this is my kid? She ended up telling me over and over again, yes, Bubba, it's your kid. Bubba, this is literally your son. Bubba, he needs you now more than ever. It's time for you to be a father. And I started panicking more and more and more to the point where my dad finally came home from work and he ended up looking at me saying, Bubba, what is going on here? Dad, apparently this is my kid. I don't know if it's true or not. And at that moment, right away, he said, Bubba, we need to do a blood test. I remember when my dad said that, instantly, the girl was freaking out. She's like, what? No, I don't want to do a blood test. We're not doing a blood test on my baby. He's your kid and that's final. We're not doing any tests. At that moment, we saw her panic about doing just a basic DNA test to see if I was really the father of this child. She was not for it. And at that moment, I realized, okay, she's definitely hiding something. There's no way that she is not willing to do a DNA test if I was really the child's father. So I remember at that moment, my dad ended up taking things under control and he said, if you don't do a DNA test, then my son is not involved with this baby at all. You understand? At that moment, she starts like panicking and freaking out. And it got to a point where one thing led to another. We had to call the police because she was not willing to leave and she wanted me to pay child support, even though I'll be honest with you guys, I didn't have a career or job back then other than working at a restaurant. So I wasn't making anything, to be honest with you. So when the cops finally arrived, we ended up basically figuring it out. And well, one thing led to another. We ended up going straight to a hospital and we did a DNA test. And I am not joking. When the doctor finally walked up to me and my parents after doing all the tests, I remember I was holding the baby in the waiting room and I kept looking at this baby and I just knew I wasn't the father. But when the doctor walked up to us and she pulled out the form saying, okay, Mr. Moini, or Bubba, I should say, I want you to let you know that I'm sorry to say this, but you are not the father. At that moment, I had the biggest smile on my face and the girl beside me was freaking out, very upset. Like she was literally like so mad to the point where she was actually about to hit me over and over. Luckily, cops were there from the whole situation earlier and managed to pull her off me and basically took her away with the kid. And honestly, that was the last time I ever actually ended up seeing her. But if this ever happened to you, what would you guys do? Comment down below and follow for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.